Good morning, everybody. I hope we're having an awesome day. I woke up with a little bit of annoyance. Either my chiropractic adjustment was a little bit more than I thought it was yesterday, or I did something stupid afterwards because my low back is like pinching a little bit. It just needs some ice, and I can't ice and be live at the same time. So as soon as this is over, I'm going to go put some more ice on it. It's just, down here, I'll be fine. It's not the first time this happened this year. I think it's just really, when I have a bigger adjustment than I think I do. But it's all good. It's been gorgeous here this week. Something about, what are those things called? Post hurricane cleanliness and chemical fire, putting chlorine in the air. We've had gorgeous sunsets the past 2 days. So I've got some great pictures. You'll have to look forward to them in the vlog. But I'm like, I really don't want chlorine in the air. But if the chlorine is what's causing us to have gorgeous sunsets, I still don't want chlorine in the air. Let's see who we have going on today. Firsties was my friend Steven of Bland Designs and the Idiot Quilter. He says that he's probably not going to be chatting much because he's busy with registrations for his retreat. He has a retreat coming up in 2 weeks, and I'm registered and excited for it. So if you want to have funsies in his retreat, send him an email. He's got a video on his YouTube site, page, channel. That's the word. That has everything that you need for the retreat. And it'll be, tons and tons of fun. It's free, so you're not going to cost anything. So please go ahead, join. Good morning, Tamala and Michelle, and good morning, sweet Granny and Jen. Hi, Ingrid. Good morning, Julie, who says, beautiful day today. Ingrid says that she's registered. Stephen just sent his email in the chat. So if I remember correctly, you need to send your first and last name and your email address if it's not the email address that you sent it from. You also might need to send, $50. No, you don't. It's free. I said free. I was trying to think of something else silly to send in it. But, yeah. Good morning, Jean and Robert. And good morning, Joy T. Wow, that's been a lot of good mornings this morning. It's exciting to have a bunch of people in the chat. So today, as I mentioned, we're doing another Saturday Sampler. This is a program that is offered from my local quilt shop. It costs money to get in it, and the way the program works is if you finish your block and go and sit through their infomercial that they have, you get your next block for free. So you have to be local to be part of it. It's already over for signups, but the next signups will happen in a couple more months for the next one. Again, you have to be local. Don't call them up and say, hey, I heard it from Russ's channel. Can you sign up? The answer is no. And I am really telling you that it's no. This month's block is this block for the black and white version, and then for the colored version, it is this. So that's what I am going for. This picture is also what's been sitting in the thumbnail. In the description below this video, I have a similar block. It is not exactly the same block because I haven't been able to find exactly the same block. But it is a similar block that is available for you to work on your own if you want to make something that is very similar to this Saturday Sampler with your own stash. Yeah, the block looked like it was about, like, I think the difference was the corners, and there may be a few piecing differences because, again, this is one method, that's another method. And in fact, I'm doing a third method in order to put these together. Mostly because part of this is a square in a square, and the methods that they are suggesting is to cut a tinier square and basically put your stuff on there. And I'm just going to snowball the corners on a square because I am tired and I don't want to deal with all that extra math and frustration. So I just decided I'm going to do snowballing of a regular square. So the first part of what all of this is, let's see, I have all my fabrics and everything. I'm also using triangulations because it's a bunch of half square triangles, and I would rather do half square triangles the quick and easy way, as opposed to the method that they are suggesting. And after reading the instructions, I think the way that they are suggesting is like cutting exactly the size that you need, so you wouldn't have to trim up. And I am not near that perfect with my half square triangles. Excuse me. So I have two pieces that are facing each other, and I have my finished triangulations cut. I put some blue dot on the back of my triangulations piece, and now all I have to do is sew on the dotted lines and then trim on the solid lines. I'm also going to turn on my laser light because that helps me line up. And because I'm sewing through paper, I did turn down my stitch length just a little bit in order to help perforate that paper and make it easier to come apart in the end. Triangulations is by far my favorite method because I get perfect, exact half square triangles. And if you're going to have to trim up your half square triangles anyway, why not do it and have lines already there to trim instead of trying to line up your ruler? That's just my philosophy. Everybody who loves to do it the traditional way, I appreciate your talent. Good morning, Tamala. I'm not Tamala. How did I say Colleen? Tamala says that she is registered too, as is Julie. Good morning, Elaine. I think I missed saying good morning, neighbor Rooney. The interesting part about this block, and I did not notice it when it was first published on the website, and I actually didn't even notice it during the breadth of the Saturday sampler session, is this is the first block that does not contain that center focal fabric that the rest of the blocks have. Apparently, people were partially complaining, supposedly, saying, why isn't my purple in there? Or for anybody who was doing any other colorways, why isn't my focal fabric in there? When I saw it, it didn't click that the purple wasn't there, but I was like, this doesn't feel right. They are promising that this is not going to be the only block without the focal fabric. So I'm fine with that answer. It's weird seeing this because I'm accustomed to the vocal fabric, but not going to argue with them again. When they're putting their blocks together, they have a in product in design in mind. They're not just randomly picking stuff and saying, "Well, we're going to do it this way. We're going to do it this way." The other interesting thing is this is a block full of new fabrics. I was not expecting that because this is month 7 and none of these fabrics have been used in any of the other blocks before. Again, not concerned because that means they're probably going to be used again and again. I'm just saying it's just a little weird from the program. It also suggests that they're not going to put these together in the order that we made them. Otherwise, that really would look funny, where you would have one set of fabrics up top and another set of fabrics on the bottom or something like that. Again, when it comes to like block of the months or Saturday sampler, stuff that I'm not picking the fabrics from, I will trust the fabrics from the person who knows what they're doing. Now, if you told me to pick a block of the month stuff for fabrics, I definitely would want to know what the end result is going to be. Because the couple times that I have picked fabrics for a mystery quilt, it did not come out very well. And it's mostly because, like, what I think is going to end up being the accent color ends up not being the accent color, so it just did not lay right. No fault of the designer, it's just, fault of Russ having way too many ambitions when it comes to picking colors. uh Random. So what is everybody working on today? I know Steven is working on registrations. I know a lot of people are working to get registered. So these are the half square triangles, which I will trim later. I figure I've still got to get some more pieces cut or sewn with my open-toed foot. The next pieces I'm going to start working on are my square in a square. Like I said, the instructions on here say to cut this a little bit smaller and take our side pieces, cut these a little bit bigger, and cut them in half and just add on to the corners. I don't feel like doing it that way. So what I did is I cut a square the size that it was going to end up being after adding the corners on, and and then cut the square and square pieces to the size that they were going to have to be, as if I was making flying geese. So in this case, it was going to be a 4.5 inch background piece is what I cut, and 2.5 inch accent pieces onto it. And then all it is lining up. I'm using a combination of my laser light and my diagonal seam tape. And just sewing as if it was flying geese traditional method. Or snowballing corners, whatever you want to think about it. For this, but I figure this is going to get me something slightly more accurate, and I won't have to trim the block down or get irritated that the block is slightly too small, since I'm going to have to trim the backs anyway. I'm like, why did I apparently pulled from 2 different piles. Because I'm like, why do I have different number of pieces? Joydy says that she will be working on some Halloween scrappy mug rugs, placemats, and table runner for a New Jersey friend. What a lucky friend to have, or to be. This week I said I have to get things ready for Christmas. And in order to make sure that everything is ready for when I need it to be ready, I created a calendar. And I've had to have a few things slowly added to the calendar, realizing, oh, cripes, I forgot about this. Oh, cripes, I forgot about this. And certain things have to be done sooner than others, so I have to dust a few things off and try to make sure I get these done in time. So what I am doing instead of folding these back is I'm doing opposite corners. Just because at that point I can cut everything at the same time, trim everything at the same time, and work on them kind of in piecemeal. Robert says he is in the middle of making breakfast. What are you making for breakfast? I had the urge for like pancakes or waffles lately. And it was like 2 weeks ago when we went to both IHOP and Waffle House when David was in town. Waffle House was better and cheaper. Joy says she's a Halloween fanatic. Anyone else? Robert says, anyone else get kind of, preoccupied with watching the needle? It is fascinating to watch. That is one of the fun things about like watching tutorial videos is it's the sound of the needle going up and down. It's watching the needle go up and down. When I have my embroidery machine running, just sitting there watching the needle is mesmerizing. The long arm watching the needle is mesmerizing. And this one. I almost wish I can get a better cam on the needle here, just because I think that would be a lot more satisfying. I just don't know. I can't figure out how to get this camera to connect at this angle and me still be able to see. That is the difficult thing. Elaine says, we are getting an IHOP around the corner across from the racetrack, used to be a Hardee's. Correction, Elaine, it is already in place. That is where we ate 2 weeks ago. And they didn't increase the dining room size. So if you remember the old Hardee's dining room size, it is the same dining room size. They just put a few more tables in there. And it is slow and it is expensive. I think I spent $35 in there myself, and I just had, one of their standard breakfasts. So what I do before I do anything is I fold my stuff over to make sure it lines up with the edges. And if it does, I know I don't have to cut anything or pick anything, rather. And that's also how I will press it, is I will fold the two edges together. Like this one's almost tight, but I can make it work. But I will line these two edges up and then just get the iron and press it on top. To give you something that looks like that. And then once I have these pressed, now I can just come back here and trim 1/4 of an inch from behind. Make sure you only trim the behind layer. If you trim the top layer as well, you have kind of messed something up. And I've done that. I'm going to say everyone has done that. But you do it once, you probably will never do it again. And for the people crazy enough to do it, you do get a little bit of waste. So you are welcome to sew another seam before you trim them and get an itty bitty half square triangle. It's not worth it for me. So now I am going to snowball the last two corners, and it does not matter which ones you do because you're always going to have three in one. So there's no real concern about trying to make sure you do things right. Robert says he's having Texas toast and scrambled egg sandwich with coffee. I don't do coffee, but the rest of it sounds delicious. Elaine says, "Yay, didn't know it's open." I don't know how long it's been open, but uh, like I said, it was 2 weeks ago, and we went. the The staff still needs to get a little accustomed to everything, but that's just with any new restaurant opening. So I can't hold them into that. Joy D says that's a lot, especially for one for breakfast. That's what I said. I mean, I did end up getting an orange juice, but it was, what did I end up having? Oh, I had their, what was that called? The chicken fried steak for breakfast, and it came with eggs and a hash brown and a couple pancakes. And yeah, their hash browns are nowhere near Waffle House's hash brown. Uh, I keep forgetting how, and I hate to compare like this, but how inferior their hash browns are to Waffle Houses when they act like they're the same thing. Colleen says she's working on her Pooh Bear today. Uh, and she also says that $35 American is exorbitant. You can get a good brekkie for 25 Canadian. Yeah, like I said, it kind of surprised, and the 35 is including the tip, but you know, there still wasn't a lot of those dollars in tips. Joydy says she has to force herself to eat breakfast, but do like pancakes for brunch. I don't, well, I used to have to force myself for breakfast, but now that I have medication that upsets my stomach unless I eat breakfast, I eat breakfast. I really need to get to back to eating my overnight oats for breakfast, just because that ends up being, probably less than $1 a serving, whereas going to the cafeteria and getting an omelet is $6.35 a serving. So maybe while I am off in 2 weeks or week and a half, I'm on this week, I'm off the following week. I can get myself back to making my overnight oats and be a little bit happier with my breakfast time. Robert says, I suppose technically brunch, but yeah, 2 sandwiches is a lot. And one more. after this seam, it is just going to be nothing but putting together. And I'm going to do the same thing real quick, just make sure things line up. That one is a little tight, but it'll still work. Somehow I got a thread that came through. So I now have all four. Time to trim these real quick. And Elaine, if you are still here, I heard that the Waffle House that's at the corner of Delk here, not Delk, yeah, Delk, is now a corporate owned Waffle House. So they don't change their menus in the middle of the day or in the evening whenever they do shift change to raise their prices. Still not going to go there because I still like the one that's over by the Nissan dealership. But it sounds like we got a little bit better. Know how you came in. So I've got my 4 squareness squares, and now I'm going to trim my half square triangles down. So what I do is I first just trim everything into the squares. just so it lets me do the same thing over and over again. Elaine agrees on the hash browns. I know the two products are essentially the same. They're just shredded potatoes. But there's something about the way that Waffle House preps their hash browns that makes them taste better. It might be the low melt that they cook them in, but I've also had their hash browns steamed, and they're still good. Got one more of these to get to the squares. And then once you have all the squares, all you need to do is cut on the diagonal here. And then it's got two little pieces for you to cut off to get rid of the dog ears. You get two triangles. And I'm going to use my ruler to trim that last little piece. And you get half square triangle. I'll get the rest of these trimmed. And then we can start laying things out. Guess who Nancy's now hungry? I'm sorry. If it makes anybody feel better, I just had QT for breakfast today. And my ticket number was 321, so I had that theme song stuck in my head from 321 Contact. For anybody who is old enough and or young enough to remember that. And then now I just start trimming the dog ears. And I realize I have my triangles all mixed up right now, but that's because I can just easily sort them out in a minute. Joy T loves QT ice cream cones. I haven't had one of those in a while. The one by me stopped doing their, I want to call it Blizzard McFlurry ice cream with mix-ins. I don't know why they stopped it. They also seem to have a limited menu on some of the things. Like they don't do the scramblers for breakfast. And I have no idea why. Because they used to. Alrighty. So now that I have them sewn and trimmed, I just rip the paper off. And then when I press it open, I have a perfect half square triangle. Next question is, which direction am I pressing these? And it looks like it doesn't wholly matter, although it kind of does. So I'm going to put these in piles first. Because I have 3 different half square triangles that I have. I have a blue and floral, a floral and light blue, and a yellow and background. Guess who Nancy had a banana, but hash browns sound better. Banana sounds healthier. And bananas are what I put in my overnight oats to actually give them decent flavor. Ripping off these papers is a job that I will generally do while watching TV. I will try to get as many half square triangles as I can sewn. And I will take that pile, I will turn on television, a movie, a musical, and just be watching it and does eat oats and little lambs eat ivy, Steven says. Don't know if I understand that. I'm glad I was able to translate that you said does, not does. Because does and does are spelled the same. Colleen says, never made overnight oats, just porridge. What's my recipe? My recipe is a difficult one for me to remember because I have it written down. I did do a video in Vlogmas 2022, I believe, with my overnight oats recipe. I think that's when I did it. and it's sitting here on my channel. Basically, it's about 2 cups of oats, a couple tablespoons of chia seeds, a couple cups or maybe it's 1 cup, maybe 2, some amount of almond milk, honey, and banana. I think that's the entire recipe. I have to pull out the recipe just about every time I make it because what I have it in is in scale measurements. So it makes it easier for me to make because I don't have to dirty up any containers. I just put my I knew I counted 3. Put in 4 piles. So all I do is I put my bowl on my scale and pour my oats into it to however many grams it's supposed to be. It's a basically even number of grams. And then I do the same thing for the chia seeds so that I don't have to do any measuring that. I shake up my feel like I'm missing an ingredient. But I will end up just pouring everything in there, resetting my scale so that I can keep the same measurements. And I'm sure you can put them back down into cups and teaspoons or tablespoons. But if you have a kitchen scale, it's easier. Okay, for pressing, for the blue dot and floral, I'm going to press to the blue dots. I'm sorry, yeah, press towards the blue dots. For the yellow and background, I'm going to press towards the yellow. And then for the light blue and the floral, I'm going to press to the floral. That should give me a lot of nesting. Robert says he bought a scale to try that method, but that's as far as he got. The good thing about a scale is it makes baking that much better because if you say, I need a cup of flour, you could have it very lightly packed in there. You could have a little bit heavier packed in there. And you just really don't know if you had the same level of packing as the person who made the recipe. Whereas if you say you need, 100 grams of flour, you're going to get 100 grams of flour. Then again, I have seen people who have made recipes share their recipe on like their website or something, and the recipe be different quantities than what you see them make. And that's very frustrating for people who are trying to follow the directions exactly and they don't come up with the same results and then they get frustrated and it's horrible. It's a song, Russ. Okay, what's the song? I missed what song it was. I wasn't singing a minute ago. And one more set. Alrighty, now that I have everything, let me line up these corner units. I'm going to need the yellows. These yellows will face inwards. And then these pairs will face downwards. I'm just making sure that does look right. Okay. And on these, there's nothing that needs to nest, but in the going in the adjoining blocks, that's where there's a nest. Elaine got Steven's comment. But I did not. I am just sewing these in pairs. Oh, Stephen. Oh, song, doze. Okay. I thought it was like a nursery rhyme or something like that. But the Doze and Lamb lyric is a Andrew Sister song. Pedal to the metal. When it is straight stitching like this, I can do that. I'm also realizing that I'm approaching noon and I prefer to be done by noon. I'm not going to be done by noon today, but I will be close. Before I cut the next one, I'm going to lay out the center block. Which is a pinwheel. And at least this one, it's got a nest at the top and bottom. I'm going to take everything, put the pinwheel off, and split it into pairs. Steven says it's a Canadian thing, probably. Trying to figure out which way I want to press. I feel like this method, where the yellow pressing towards the yellow and then pressing towards the yellow, is going to be the better. And I keep them sewn together, sewn together, just so that I don't lose track as to which one is which belongs to which. And which direction they go to. And then I have a center point where my seams will nest. And then I also have a crosshair where the threads connect. To give me points to try to line up for a perfect intersection. But this is basically as close as you can get it. And what I should have done is trimmed this after I got it started. I feel like my yellow squares are a thread or two larger than my half square triangles. Which is not uncommon for me because I'm not a perfect cutter. But I make it work. And then let me grab the center pinwheel. And then for these, I'm going to press it so that whatever direction the half square triangle is going is I want that for where the seam's going to go. And that's going to give me a perfect pinwheel spin in the center. Trim the thread. And to be honest, with a lot of my points, I do a stitch and pray method. You can do everything that you want to line things up. You can poke a pin. You can do your perfect lining up. Various things. I just stitch and pray. And just hope that when I open things up, they look decent. This one's a little off. I can probably deal with that. This one looks nice. That one, okay, so this one does look a little off. Do I want to rip it? Considering how it's like 1/8 of an inch off, I'm ripping it. What about my pinwheel? Pinwheel looks pretty good. But this one I'm not happy with. To rip, I just poke every 2 or 3 stitches. Pop, flip, whatever we want to call it. And then it should just basically open up. There's in the center here. Couldn't pop stitches as easily. I just open it up and pop. Okay, let's try this again. I'm gonna line up there. Get the center lined up. And then get the end lined up. I would not have had these issues if I had pinned. But I don't pin. I would rather do an occasional seam rip like I just did than have to pin. And that is perfect now. And what I'm going to do is I am going to spin these seams open as I press. I can just pop the seams open and spin them. That way they always go the same direction. And then the same thing here. I am going to do the same spin, and that'll just reduce that little bit of bulk in the center of this pinwheel. You may need a mallet. There are a lot of layers of thread there. If I had really paid attention, I would have pressed this seam going towards the light blue, and that would have made it a little bit of a nicer seam in the center. But it's too late. But for anybody else who's doing this, it's not. If you're watching the replay, well, that is assuming if you watch the replay, then made the block. If you're trying to make the block with me, then maybe it is too late. This is why, it's important to make test blocks when you are working with a pattern, and especially important to tell people pressing instructions with a pattern when things like this matter. Although there's no pressing instructions in this pattern, so it's however we feel. But I prefer patterns with pressing instructions. Okay, now we can lay out our block. I have there, 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 and center pinwheel. We line these up with the center pinwheel. And we will have a gorgeous block. I'm going to take the very far right side off. I'm just dealing with one column at a time. Line these up. And again, you have points that you can do your darndest to make work, or just say it'll happen. I am now wondering if my printer may not have printed my triangulations exactly right, because I'm not fully lining up as I'm expecting. I'm close. But if I'm too far off, I could always remake the block on my own time, doing the exact same things that I just did. Because this does feel slightly off, and I did not check my triangulation size, which is what you are supposed to do. Because you see, I'm about 1/8 of an inch off. But I'm going to try to stretch just a little bit, and we'll see how I like it at the end. I am not even going to finish this. And I'm going to apologize. This is only measuring 12 and a quarter, which means I did something severely wrong. But if I did finish it, it would look really awesome. So what I think I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to keep these square and a square blocks, but I'll probably have to redo all of my half square triangles. Got to figure out what my printer did wonky. I don't have my sample sheet to measure, but it had to have printed smaller than I'm expecting, because that's the only excuse that it would be. Since I don't have my print, because I did have a extra piece or two, but I don't know where I left them. Not at the top of the trash. Oh well. Mistakes happen. Hi Stephanie. As I was telling everybody, Stephanie, I goofed. My half square triangles are smaller than they're supposed to be, and I have no idea why. So I'm gonna have to just reprint more triangulations and redo the block. But like I said, I don't have to redo the whole thing. I'm just gonna rip everything out, keep my four squares and squares because those are the right size. Yes, those are exactly the right size. The um the other ones are about an eighth of an inch too short, almost a quarter of an inch too short. So that means my triangulations did print small for some reason. Stupid printers. So I will take off my own time and rip these pieces out, print out new triangulations, and fix this. Which means I may need to buy new fabric. I think I have enough to do this block, but they aren't giving us all the fabric for every block, so I may have to buy another fat eighth of some point of the floral and or the blue. That shouldn't be too bad, but it shouldn't take me too long to fix this. Like I said, it's just a couple minutes of ripping, and we saw how long it took me to get this far. So I expect in about an hour or so I should have this fixed. Oh, I'm gonna have, like I said, I'm gonna have to figure out what I did wrong. Anyway, let us wrap this up. For next week, I'm gonna have to look at my calendar to see what I will be doing. Let me put my screen up there. Yeah. So I will put up on my calendar, put up a card of what's happening next week. Next Sunday, the 13th, I will be having a Sewing Shenanigans Day. It is a Zoom sew day for anybody who wants to join. It's going to only be on Zoom. It's not going to be broadcast on YouTube. You can send me an email with your email address, and I will pop that in, or I will send you a reminder for the sew day. Or I will have the sew day link in next week's vlog on Wednesday and next week's live. I will try to remember to put it in that one. It'll definitely be in the vlog. It may or may not be in the live. So look forward to that. And on Wednesday, I have my weekly vlog that goes out. I think that covers everything. Like I said, I'm a little tired still. I need more caffeine. So I hope everyone has